Welcome to Business Prowess with Rafael and Dr. Andrea. Our show will bring you the best insights, ideas, and inspiration from successful entrepreneurs and CEOs in the business world. Don't miss out on the opportunity to learn from the best and stay ahead of the game. Sifu Rafael is the founder of 5 unique shows. He's a fitness professional, solutions expert, executive coach, and head instructor at Max Martial Arts and Fitness in New York. Dr. Andrea Adams-Miller is an award-winning international keynote speaker, best-selling author, and CEO of the Red Carpet Connection Publicity, Publishing, and Talent Agency, and CEO of IgniteYourRelationship.com. Known as the Dream Maker, she makes visionaries' dreams come true, bigger than they ever dare to desire.
Dr. Andrea, happy Friday. How are you today?
I am super excited. I feel like just singing.
Ooh, I heard you singing before. I love when you sing, by the way.
Shake it up.
That's
Cool.
it. That's it.
We have got really fun people on today. I'm excited.
We do. Why don't we go ahead and bring them? We have Mark and Stacy. Come on. Hello. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to you all as well. It's great to see you.
Yes.
Well, thank you for bringing us flowers. That was very nice of you, Stacy. And Mark for the book collection. We appreciate that.
Yes.
Sifu and I both avid readers, so we always appreciate a lot of books.
Oh, yeah.
So we have something interesting today as far as the mix. So really the title of the show, Quiet Leadership and Networking. So when people think of leadership and networking, they do not think of quiet. It is not a top of mind thought. And at the same time, when you think about that, we have extroverts and introverts, and we have introverted extroverts and extroverted introverts, and however I said that and mix it up.
Mix it all up.
Yes. So I would love you guys to jump in and fill us in. What are your thoughts? What are you thinking?
I think a lot of leadership extroverts can be introverted at times. I don't know many people that are completely always on and extroverted. So I think quiet leadership could also mean that you're listening. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So I think quiet leadership, at least when you said it, that's one of the first things I thought is the leader that actually listens to the team or the people they're leading and doesn't want to talk all the time.
Yeah. And I would build on that. I think that a big myth that I work on dispelling is the fact that introverts can't be leaders. So really, the facts are that introverts have a ton of innate strengths and gifts that set them up to be really powerful, influential, and effective leaders. And it's not about stepping outside your comfort zone and acting extroverted, but when you tap into your real introverted strengths, you're actually situating yourself to be a really powerful, authentic leader.
Without a doubt. I always consider that when we are speaking, we're not learning. So therefore, listening is an important skill. And if you take the word listen and you mix it around, you also have the word silent. So you need to be silent to listen, right? Therefore, every time to become a great leader, we have to use those 2 skills right there, to listen and be silent, so we can adapt to the situation or learn from someone.
Yeah, and introverts tend to be really good at reading between the lines, as the expression goes. We're good at sitting back, engaging in active listening, picking up on nuances and cues that help us to really get the full picture of what's going on. And that sets us up to be great leaders.
I always say, if you're listening, you're learning. That's why I'm usually one of the quietest guys in the room in virtual events, listening to other people and learning from them.
Love it.
And taking notes. Sometimes the notes actually help with the listening.
So I
still use a notebook.
So as I said there, I stepped on Mark. I'm the loud, noisy one. Usually, I have become more quiet. The older I get, the more confident I am in myself. I never realized that part of me talking and sharing was to be seen and heard. I thought it was well, part of it is because I want to engage other people who are quiet, but then I end up talking too much and don't give them really enough room to speak or talk. And then sometimes if there's dead air, I always will fill it. Part of it is because I'm in publicity. So dead air is a bad thing. So you have to jump in and do it. But especially if here online, yes, we don't want dead air, but in person to be quiet so that the other person will fill the space. And so that all came with me dealing with, my subconscious of, and different stories of how I grew up and how to show up in the world so that I grew up an only child too. So I didn't learn those things on give and take and how to balance that, and spent a lot of my time by myself or with adults who were monopolizing over the time. So I had to hurry and talk to get in or to be seen or heard. So it's something that, people have to see and understand for themselves. And then as they switch and change, they can back up and realize like where now I literally need time away from people now where I never needed that before. It's been a shift.
You need that quiet time from time to time. And like Mark said it, he earlier when we were talking, he needs to be silent when he's by himself, or sometimes become an introvert when he by himself and with his girlfriend. And it's important to also, I think the quiet lets us reflect on what we need to do. So I believe quiet leadership allows us to see where we're going, to navigate a little bit better, almost like your GPS. You need to set it, because if you don't set your GPS in your car, it's just going to show you where you are, not where you're going, right? So set your GPS, but you need to do that quietly in order to achieve more. And I believe a quiet leader is someone who's actually listening to the people who are following. Let's not forget those people behind us. And yet we should also sometimes go to the back so we can observe also.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important because it lets people know they're heard. I think that's one thing that most people crave more than anything, especially business conversations, is that you actually care about them. You want to learn about them. It's not just me. When they feel heard, I think they want to follow the leader even more because they feel like there's somebody important and they're useful because the leader is actually curious about them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would say too, the notion of quiet leadership, I think for introverts, it's not even necessarily being quiet, but communicating with others in a way that's aligned with your strengths as an introvert. So you might be quieter in terms of not having a boisterous voice and speaking all the time and thinking out loud and all those things that we typically identify with leadership, but you could be communicating in writing. You could be communicating in one-on-one conversations or with small groups, or after you've had time to consider a question, a problem, so that when you're coming back with your ideas, with your solutions, they're reflecting a depth in thought and not a rash reaction.
I love it. So let's also talk about the networking aspect of what we should do as leaders or people who want to become leaders. Because Dr. Andrea is a publicist. Her business is based on networking, on people. Without people, your networking is dead. Without going out there and introducing yourself to someone, and if you introduce yourself to someone and just tell them how incredible you are, you're not networking. You're just making people go, oh, I do not want to associate with that one. But listening is when we go into networking and asking them, tell me about you, right? Because how many times have you been at an event and people just start, they go off the rails and it's all about them. And then it's like that movie, I think it was Bette Midler who said, enough talk about me. What do you think about me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. And when I think about networking, I think the key, and this applies to whether you're introverted or extroverted in any kind of space, is you want to tap into your strengths when you're doing it. So to be comfortable and effective as a networker, when you're introverted, you're not going to do it the way extroverts do, right? You're not going to try to go into a cocktail party or a conference room and try to collect 50 business cards and have these surface level conversations with 50 people. But how do you tap into your introverted strengths to do it? And real quickly, like what I advise my clients is to identify for as many days as you're at a conference, pick 3 people that you want to meet each day. Research them ahead of time, take a look at their LinkedIn profile, find them on their website, and seek them out. And check those 3 people off your list each day. You'll have an opportunity to go deeper in conversations and getting to know people. And you're not going to be as depleted as you would be if you try to just work the room in that typical introverted way that we think of when someone says networking.
Mm. But don't do me a favor before you go, Mark. Do me a favor for people doing what Stacy suggested, which is brilliant. Your first, after you say hello and you connect it with them, they'll say, "Hey, buy my product." Please don't do that.
Very true. Very true. And what you want to do with each of these people is ahead of time identify what's your goal from for the conversation. Do you want to get advice? Do you want to find out about job opportunities? Do you want to ask them about a paper they wrote? And to the extent that it can reflect that you're interested in them and what they think, you're going to have more success forging that initial relationship.
Absolutely.
I'm going to jump in here. So I have 2 different ways that I approach networking. I am known as people will say things like, "Oh my gosh, Andrea works the room like no other." And I want to share what that means. Working a room doesn't mean I'm like, I think it could be when some people hear it, they're like, "Oh my God," like they think that's like a negative thing. For them, it's usually it's a compliment on working the room, meaning that I utilize the space to meet as many people as possible. So that is one. So I have 2 different methods. I said one is I'll meet a lot of people. And I'll take the energy to meet them in a short window, and I gather information from them, exchange information with them. And then I usually say, "Hey, I would love to get to know you, but we're in this space where we can't really even hear each other. If we get caught in a conversation, we're going to get interrupted. And I would rather get to know you heart to heart and soul to soul. So can we follow up and actually take that time?" And that is, I've never had anybody say no, so that is taken well. And we exchange the information. And then later on, as the day goes by, I do, like a, hey. So we're making another nonverbal, like, I know you, even though we don't know each other. And that adds a comfortability level to us. And then depending on my energy level and the situation at hand, my other way of doing it is when I come in, how you mentioned, Stacy, like meeting 3 people, I don't have a number in mind. However, I have a feeling in mind. So when I come in, I read the room and I look for the people who appear introvert, who aren't sharing or who aren't doing something, who are in that almost like they're choosing to be the wallflower, so to speak. Because what I have learned is that often in the outer scope of that room, in that what appears to be an introvert, often is somebody who is extremely intelligent, who might be invited to speak later, might be a special guest, or has had a lot of celebrity around them, and they need it to be quiet until later, because like they have to conserve. There is sometimes I'm in situations where I'm celebrity, and it gets exhausting quickly because the energy you give and that's going, and so I'll be very quiet beforehand. Those are the people I want to meet, so I have this chance to talk to them and connect. And they studies say that introverts are actually usually more intelligent than extroverts, so I want to meet them.
That is correct.
Hi, Marianne.
Hey, Marianne. One of the things that Dr. Andrea and I actually both do once we do go through a room, we get to meet people. And it's funny because we were both doing it at the same time. And in a room we were in together. And it's, you mentioned, Stacy, getting people's business cards. And I don't even have business cards anymore because we do a simple little trick of, hey, I'd love to, connect with you further. Why don't we take a selfie? And then I'll text it to you. You text me back your information. And what happens with that is when you do reach out, then you can also share, hey, here's our picture together kind of deal. And it helps. And I love the fact that you're writing that note down, because any information that we can get is helpful to how we network with someone, because it becomes more memorable. Because if they're like, man, I met 38 people. Who's this person?
Oh, I love
Especially
that.
if they send a text message. And so all of a sudden, when you can actually connect the text message to an image, all of a sudden you go, I remember you. And then sometimes maybe you talked a week later or 3 months later, but also you get the room and you go, oh, I met you at so-and-so place, or at this one's birthday party, or at this event, or at this gathering, or at this summit. It ties everything together. So getting the picture, maybe even more. And then I would even go a little step further, which I have. I'll take a picture of them doing something and I'll send it to them. And they're like, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. And now the connection has gotten deeper.
Mm. Brilliant.
As the person who's often the photographer, I love that the most, because then there's no pictures of me because I'm the one holding the camera. So that Sifu has always stood out for me like that. And for you, Stacy and Mark, do the same thing. If you see the photographer taking a shot and you photograph the photographer and get to know them, you tend to get in pictures more. I'll just tell you, as a photographer, the people who treat me well or say, hey, I noticed you've been really busy. Do you need a drink of water or whatever? I take more pictures of them. So a little treat your photographers and videographers really, really well. It will benefit you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've also found, as far as introverts go, in the room, I found some of the most successful people in the room don't feel the need to talk about themselves because they're confident. They know who they are. They know what they've done. They don't need to brag. And they tend to be some of the quieter ones until you talk to them. It's like, oh my God, you did what? But they don't brag about themselves because they don't feel the need to.
Yeah. That's a great point. And I love that texting the selfie idea. It's so introvert aligned, right? Because I recommend too, you want to follow up with people. The internet is your friend. Direct messaging on LinkedIn or connecting on LinkedIn, to Dr. Andrea's point, to continue that conversation, whether it's live or electronically after the fact, when you're away from the noise, when you've had a chance as an introvert to recharge, because rooms like that tend to suck our energy.
I was just in a summit. Marianne, who said hi to us, I was in her summit. She has a summit all day long today. And I just did my presentation. And the gentleman coming after me, I praised him, and then I got off, but then I texted him right away and let him know, hey, we need to connect again. And I want to talk to you about these subjects. And it was just 2 seconds, really, to say, happy to see you. Let's talk.
Yeah,
Stacey mentioned something. I put myself on mute because I'm typing notes of what you guys say in the conversation. So then that way later on, people know what you've said, because I say Stacey shared and Mark discovered and Sifu explains, so that way people understand how amazing you are and all the wonderful.
See, there it is. She writes it all up.
Yep.
Yeah. And hopefully I get it in the way that you meant it. Like I do my best. So if not, then write it and say, actually, I kind of mean more. I'm not going to be offended by that correction, because I'm doing the best I can to keep typing. What I'm actually doing right here on my thing, then this is really funny, Sifu. I was going to show Stacy the difference. So I am an extrovert, in case you didn't notice. Stacy mentioned when you do the selfie and she says you follow up with like LinkedIn or a direct message. And I'm like, oh, not me. I'm like that is, I hate that. Like, I mean, I'll do it, but to me, I can't find that information. I want it in my phone so that I have it in my phone, and I have a direct connection to them. So for example, here's me and Sifu at an event or whatever. So I do the selfie. I go, "What's your cell?" and wait for it. And then some people say, "Oh, well, I like email," and I'll say, and then I usually will say, and I said, "Well, I'd like to actually get to know you one on one. So, what's your cell?" So because I'm not looking for, if I have to talk to you through email, that is probably not my person. Because first of all, that's not the way I communicate. I never look at my email. I don't prefer email. It just gets lost. And to me, it's too much thought, too much personalization. And if I have something amazing for you, I want to call you. If I'm going to be in your town, I want to invite you to something. I want to call you and invite you. I don't want to have to go through a gatekeeper of an email. And that's my perception. That does not mean that's what that means, but that's just not the way I operate. And so and to be okay with each person having their own way of doing things. So
that's really interesting because and it's the first time I've thought of it this way. So it's a balance, I think, between what you're comfortable with, what works for you, and also the person with whom you're trying to connect. So I know as an introvert, I will say, I would so much rather you send me an email or find me on LinkedIn. And if I looked at my phone and you were calling, I may or may not pick up, but I know it would be less comfortable for me. So it's partly leaning into how you like to operate, and then I think it's also knowing your audience, and what's going to increase the likelihood that they're going to respond to you.
yeah. And I do appreciate that. I do look at people's model of the world. And if if they really hesitate the second time, because most people go, "Oh, okay." Because as soon as I explain myself, then they're like, you can see like, "Oh, okay." Because they realize I'm not like going to put you on a texting thing, and I'm not trying to, especially as soon as they hear I'm not trying to sell them anything. I'm like, "Hey, I just want to get to know you heart to heart." And they're like, "Oh, okay."
That's
Like
right.
you can see the barrier come down. But if they hesitate again, I go, "Okay." I said, "I'm a texter. I prefer to do that. I get it. I'll email you. I'll LinkedIn you." But for me, if I have to jump through a hoop to go and find someone, they are going to, it's not that I don't want to find them. The likelihood that they're going to stay in my ADHD world is least likely. And then how I remind myself of things is going to my phone and scrolling. What do I need to do? Because this is where it is. I'm not going to remember a DM or a LinkedIn message unless they reach out to me. And so, yeah, it's just figuring out how we work. And there are people, we miss each other. I'm sure we would have been the best of friends or business partners. We just didn't know how to communicate on the same social media thing.
Yeah. Eric Acosta, thank you for saying hello. And I like the Christmas tree he put on there for us to all remember that for those who celebrate Christmas, it's coming up, right? We tend to connect with people, but we sometimes don't highlight them.
What do you mean highlight them?
Let them know we care. Just like the quick message I just got from Eric, right? From and Marianne, not Eric, Enrique. And for example, hey brother, Marianne came on, and these are people who look. She goes hi again, right? Marianne, she throws some hearts. They're highlighting us. They're highlighting you. Highlighting is putting somebody on the spotlight and saying, I see you. I honor you. And we forget to do that with people that maybe we met. And Dr. Andrea does it beautifully when she meets somebody. She doesn't go, hey, how you doing? She's like, oh my gosh. And it's that vibrancy that we're missing, even if you're an introvert, because you can, you're going to get somebody come up. How you doing? How's everything? And then you're going to go, somebody who's going to go, oh my God, it's so great to see you. Even if you're an introvert, you can still be excited about seeing a person that you haven't seen in a while, or saying a good word to someone else. Is like, hey, I was just I had Mark on the show and he was exceptional. And then pop, and then you go into it, right? And Stacy shared it. And so what Dr. Andrea is doing is she's highlighting all of us by in the background. She's highlighting us. She's making remarks. She's putting what you said, not word for word, but your intent. And see, there she goes. She's putting stuff up. It looks like it's me, but it's actually her, because that's what's being in there.
Yeah. And Sifu, I think what you just demonstrated too is that Dr. Andrea might be doing it at a louder voice, more animated in her body language and her facial expressions. And then the second way you did it was much more controlled and temperate, and I would say equally effective, or differently effective. And that's such a great lesson, that you can do it at different volumes or with different styles, and the key is to do it in the way that aligns with how you're wired.
Mark, I would love to get your take on this, since you really help people with how they show up, both extrovert. There's two things I'd like you to comment on. One is how to help each one show up in their model of the world, and so that they reflect and attract the avatar that they're looking for and are effective and yet honest to themselves. And then on the other hand, if you're dealing with more than one person in a camera, like Sifu and I are the exact opposite. So our first couple shows together, talk about awkward, because I'm super loud and interruptive, and Sifu is so polite and talks sometimes so slow that I respect it now. But at first I was like, come on, Sifu. Where now I get his poignancy of his pregnant pauses and his, ambiance of how he does it. But the first week I was like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go. But now it works fine. So Mark,
it's a beautiful marriage, I got to tell you.
So you want to know, as far as as far as people on camera, one thing I do before I turn on the camera and we start recording, I talk about something good, something they're most proud of for the week, something exciting that happened to them, and it shifts their mood. That's what happens behind the scenes is a big part of what I do with my interviews. I get them in a good mindset before we ever hit record and talk about happy, good things. Like I said, things they're proud of, something they're looking forward to, and their emotions, their body language, everything changes. So when they get on camera, their energy, passion, purpose, and their stories come through a lot better.
I like making them go into a better state, because they may be nervous. They're like, oh, camera, oh, I'm going to mess this up. And you're like, just chill. Let's just go with the flow and remember the good times, right?
It's just getting them talking, getting the conversation going. So when we hit record, it's like a continuation of a good conversation. It's not what can be awkward of silence, record. And it's like, and people can freeze, but they're already talking. We're already having a dialogue. I just happen to hit a record button. We're off to the races and everything's good.
What I appreciate about what you're doing is, like, whether somebody's writing a book or they're on a podcast or a television show, the best sound bites come from the middle of whatever it is that they're doing. Like, they'll just drop a nugget in. And then the skill of what Mark does, in my opinion, is he's leading the openness where that can just come out. And then they have the ability to edit and then just cut away from that slight breath, that barely breath in there, to cut before and after, so that you have this little snapshot clip of an excellent reel. And then whether you tie them all together and make them into a longer reel, or you just have that piece, or that piece is highlighted in such a way. Highlight is a new word, apparently. And Mark, I really appreciate that, because I don't think people realize the introspect that you have to have as an interviewer and for your editing team to be able to not only prompt the thought of those mic drops, but then to capture them and then make them look really good in edit. So good job. Yeah. Do you want to say
I
anything?
found a good
about that?
editor, thank God. Yes, he's really good at telling stories with clips instead of just putting a bunch of 5-second clips together randomly. He does a great job of turning it into a story, even if it's 30 seconds.
Beautiful.
Not easy to do either. So.
No, I had to kiss a lot of frogs before I found the right producer and editor.
So as an interviewer, what are some things that you have realized in you that your gift of pulling out, well, two things, let's do it both ways, of getting the introvert to slow down so they can actually get to the point of what they want to share, and getting out of the introvert what they want to share?
I think the answer to both, what I found with interviewing, the best tip, my favorite tip, I should say, best is for the other person to decide, is using the questions how and why. Basically, especially if someone's newer and they're newer to interviewing and they feel like they're kind of painted into a corner and stuck, it's like, oh crap, what do I ask next? 95% of the time, regardless of what the last answer was, asking, well, how did you do that? Or why did you do that? Elicits a story, and everyone loves stories. Asking how and why are the best tools I found for an interviewer, because it gets people, without saying, tell me a story. If you say it like that, it can feel like you're putting someone on the spot and they're like, oh crap, I have to perform. If you just say, well, really, why did you do that? Why did you start your business? Or how did you get that first customer? Boom, they're again off to the races with a story. Everyone loves stories. Great podcasts are made of great stories.
That's a great tip, because it allows them to go into their Rolodex or their file to look up for that story. And then they're like, wait, there's another story behind it. And all of a sudden the conversation or the dialogue becomes bigger. So I love that.
So in hearing that, Stacy, I was thinking, since you're already working with introverts to help them, using Mark's tip and to them, and so if they would like to not be talking more, to ask the other person a how or why, that would get it out of them. And I suppose vice versa. So Mark, if we're with introverts, if we ask them how or why, they're less likely to answer with a one-word answer.
That's the death of an interview, the one-word answer.
Expand on that. Give us an example of when that's happened and how you reacted to it and how funny it could have been or was.
I'm really fortunate now with my podcast and radio show that I either pick the guests based on the conversation I've had with them, so I know we have a good vibe and good energy, or they get referred from a close friend who's had them as a guest on their podcast. But when I was getting started, before I had that luxury, I would do a prep call with people beforehand just to make sure there's a give and take, there's a back and forth, we have good energy. And an example of one person, thank God I did a prep interview because it never went to the podcast interview itself. How did you start your company? I got funding. How did you get funding? I had a good pitch deck. It was just like, oh my God, no. And then one person I interviewed was talking about getting going in the branding world. And I'm like, I figured, once again, off to the races. She's talked about, when I was in college, I didn't even know this was a job. I didn't know I could get paid to do this. My boss gave me a couple jobs to do. I got paid to do what I love with branding. And I'm thinking, this is going to be awesome. And then she says, and I got paid to do what I did with branding, and I got a couple jobs. 20 years later, here I am. It's like, where did the story go? If you watch Seinfeld, she yada, yada, yada 20 years of her life. And 20 years later, here I am. I was like, oh, I thought that was going to be such a good story. But it
and then you still had 20 minutes to fill. I have had those.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? I would guess that that's less likely to happen with introverts, because introverts tend to be really good storytellers. In part because many of us are voracious readers. So we tend to be very good at crafting a narrative. And we might be a little more reluctant to tell the narrative, but once you get us started, we're gonna tell a story that's gonna likely be more engaging and show people, in depth of the challenges we overcame, how we used our strengths, how we got to where we are.
I love that. Go ahead. Go ahead, Dr.
I
Andrea.
agree, Stacy, that I do find them to be good storytellers and have good feedback. However, not on the spot. So what I have
Yes.
found, so I've been in radio for 20 years. So what I'll do is set up so after break, so I'll ask the question and go, but don't answer that when we come back from break, blah blah blah. So they have like 3 minutes to
Yeah.
formulate what they're going to say, and then that tends to work. But it doesn't work for me unless I've realized it with either the pre-call
Mhm.
or something. Like maybe we've even had a good relationship, but like something must have happened that day and they're distracted, or maybe somebody's sick, or who knows, maybe their dog's barking and they think we can hear it and we can't. Who knows what it is. Mark, do you have some other thoughts? I can see your brain rolling like
I like the idea of introverts. What you just said, that tip of, okay, after break, we're going to talk about and give them a chance to, as Sifu said, go through the Rolodex in their head of stories and come back feeling good about sharing a story because they had a few moments like what you said. They're not just on the spot, like, boom, tell me a story. They have a few minutes to think about it. I love that.
Yeah. And that's that preparation, right? And that's one of the ways introverts thrive too. I totally agree with that. Don't put me on the spot.
Well, think about the conversation we're having here. We're not asking you guys to tell us stories, but you have been, right? And it's the way the questions are put together. And it's if somebody tells a story and it triggers you, you're like, I got a story. I got to tell you this one. The other thing is when we ask the why or the what, we have to take the next step. Listen, do not interrupt. Because when you interrupt their thought pattern, and all of a sudden you're going to have a dead story started really high, and you interrupted because you were excited about it, and all of a sudden they're like, I think I forgot what I was going to say next.
Mhm.
Right? So interruption can actually kill an interview as well.
Definitely.
Yesterday I was at a mastermind, and each person for this segment was supposed to share positive things and wins about themselves for a certain amount of time. And somebody asked the question during that, and that there was an uncomfortable pregnant pause, and I could see his mind whirling, that he had something he wanted to say but had never really thought about saying or shared before. So he was like you could see, maybe consciously he wasn't aware, like, do I say this or do I not, but subconsciously you could see the wheels are turning. And rightly so, my friend asked him a question, which was a question we all had. And so it wasn't a negative thing that she asked, but I also wonder, what didn't he get to say? Because we ran out of time, because he didn't get to have that uncomfortable pregnant pause.
I read an article once when I was in graduate school, and I'm not going to remember the statistic, but a very high percentage of innovative ideas are never heard due to the phenomenon of interrupting. So it's not just killing interviews, it's you're missing out on what the person never got a chance to say or forgot because it left their head and you took away that opportunity. So it really is a stifler in so many ways.
I love what you said about the pregnant pause. So often that was something that I had, because my brain goes quick, and in the early days, I tended to jump in with a question. And then it took time for me to get comfortable with a pregnant pause. And like 80% of the time, they have something else to say. So it's just that wait, and then let them expound. And if you want them to tell a story, also on the other person's side, if they're a little more introverted, a pregnant pause also can make them feel a little like, I got to fill the void. I got to say something. So they're off telling another story. They're talking more. But the pregnant pause is definitely an art form that I believe interviewers need to learn and get comfortable with, and not just dive right in with another question right away.
Body positioning also helps when you're interviewing somebody, like even leaning and go without saying a word, just like just the simple little things to lead them on, to say, keep going. You're not going to say, keep going, because that's going to be interrupting. But your body language, your facial expressions will let somebody know, I'm interested. Right? Little things.
Well, we
Keep
talked about
going.
that before we started, as far as be aware of your facial expressions. I know when I started doing live interviews, doing more of them like 10, 15 years ago, I had one time a good friend from the audience came up to me afterwards. It's like, why were you pissed at him? What? And I didn't realize it until I saw a video. When I used to do this. When I would get really interested in someone, I would my brow would furrow, but I was listening intently. I was like, oh my God, tell me more. But my facial expression was,
Dr. Andrea.
And I saw that on video. I was like, oh, I got to change that. It looks like I'm mad at the other person. Not good. So I had to become very aware of my facial expressions.
What a gift that person gave you by pointing that out to you, right? And the gift of being able to watch ourselves on video. I struggle with the same thing.
I actually told a woman at the bank that once, and I had to really think. I'm like, how do I tell her? Because I saw her all the time because I go to the bank all the time, and every time I went there, she was usually really friendly and stuff, but there were days that she would just and so I finally said to her, are you having a bad day? And she's like, no. And I said, so can I share something with you? Because I'm here at the bank a lot. And she's like, yes, please. And I said, just so you know, when I've been coming to the bank, until I get you talking and stuff, you have this mean face, and this was before resting bitch face was a thing. And I'm like, you are and so I'm almost afraid to give you my bank or ask you to do another transaction. And she's like, oh my God, I did not know I did that. And I said, yeah, I said, I know I do that sometimes too, or whatever, I made it. And she received it well, but I was so afraid. I was like, oh, I don't want to tell her, but I wanted to tell her because she's with people all the time, and so that ended up positive, but that could also not be positive.
Well, it's how you did it, and it was brilliant because you asked her a question about her. You put her at ease. And a lot of times when we have to even deliver bad news, we just deliver bad news, and we don't think about the reaction that's going to happen. But you were concerned. You didn't want to hurt her feelings, but you wanted to also make sure she was okay. What if she would have told you, yeah, I'm having a bad day. What do you want?
Yeah.
I would have changed things, right? It's very interesting because a lot of people don't realize that the more you smile, the more your heart smiles. And Dr. Andrea has something that she is very passionate about. Would you mind sharing?
You mean besides the new kitten?
Smile.
I know.
Smile.
I knew what you meant, but he knows I have a new baby kitten, and he's sleeping upstairs, so I don't have him right here with me. I've only had him a week and a half. Yeah, I have the Keep Smiling movement. So the Keep Smiling movement, what makes me so excited about it is we're a mental and dental health organization focused on helping people to be resilient, to overcome any challenge so they can keep smiling. And, as a neuroscientist, there's so much science behind smiling and how it affects your brain and helps you, let down all these different, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. So you literally get a dose of hope every time you smile. So yeah, I'm super passionate about it. And, we're going to be doing some really cool things in 2025 with it, doing a little bit of rebranding and things in some different ways so we can reach more people in the world. And I've literally had other countries excited about what we're doing because there's 256 countries that participate in a happiness index. And so this kind of goes along with it.
Beautiful. And we don't want a Joker smile, even though, woo, it could be creepy, but a nice, beautiful smile. And here's going to give you everybody a tip, whoever's listening or anyone, smile. practice smiling, because guess what? You're practicing love without saying it. So if you don't normally smile, get in front of the mirror and make funny faces, goofy faces. And all of a sudden you go, you're all right. You're all right. I kind of like you. And guess what? Other people are going to start to like you more because you don't have that face that says, stay away. You have a friendly, approachable face. And that is huge for networking. If you go to an event and you're like, how many people are going to, they're like, that guy looks miserable. But meanwhile, like, all the time you're smiling, how you doing? You become approachable. And when you become approachable, guess what else comes your way? Money.
Money,
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 money, money, money, money. We
I
are
love how
done, my
all of a
friend.
sudden you said
Go ahead.
money, and then the light surrounded Mark. Ah,
Me too.
you got
Look
a
at that.
halo. Yes,
Just got a
the
halo.
light wants to come to you, Mark. Don't
Nice.
go to the light. Receive the light. Okay.
That's it. That's it.
I love that
Well,
because all of us now, we have this opportunity now
Mm.
to, we don't have to. In the past, we used to have to be in stuffy rooms and, like all black. I remember doing recordings for my radio show at the college years ago, and we were in this little dark room, and all our sound stuff and everything had to be perfect. Where now we're genuine in people's homes and offices, and we get blind lights. I have like the leaves from the trees filter on me some days, and I think some people consider it a problem. I actually like it because it shows that we have real lives, real opportunities, and that and lets the light shine on us. So I'm commending you for your light today, Mark, reminding us that the
Thank
sun is still shining even though we're working.
I'm not working.
Definitely.
When I grow up, I'll get a job, but I'm not working.
That's true. Working 9 to 5. I don't know
Oh,
what
no.
that means.
No. I think the last job I held was 92.
Oh, when's the last 9 to 5 job where you had hours? What did you guys have last?
9 to 5 hours. Like not 2018.
Wow. Mark?
God. If you include, I left corporate America to start because I thought I wanted to be a keynote speaker. Now I'm a facilitator, but I left corporate America back in like 2000. But for a few years afterwards, I waited tables to pay rent. So I could, speak for free, take the classes, learn the industry. But it's been a good 20 years now since I've had a job where I reported to somebody.
Nice.
Yeah. Right now we are being listened to in China by my friend Dennis Numela. Hi, Dennis.
Hey, Dennis.
I love that. I love that when people get to chime in from all over. Look what an impact you guys are having in the world. And
That's
Dennis,
it.
a wonderful person. We should have Dennis reach out to
Come
me
on the
and
show.
be on the show. Yes. It's the last time I had a job with hours that I can think of. I worked in law enforcement. And so, I worked, either days or evenings or midnights. And then before that, I worked in corrections, and I worked swing shifts, where our swing shift was you worked a combination of days, afternoons, and midnights within the same week. And that was, I still have nightmares where I wake up and go, oh my God, I got to be at work, because it would so mess with your head. Because you couldn't recall or remember where you were supposed to be by being in that kind of crazy schedule. And look what great opportunities we have as entrepreneurs now. Do you guys set your hours? I'm curious. Do you have a very limit, like I only work from here to here? Stacy's saying yes. Tell me more.
No, no. I generally do. I mean, I like to get started early. I'm an early bird, so I'm generally at my desk 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and my energy wanes a little in the afternoon. So probably sign off by 4 each day, a little earlier on Fridays probably. And actually a challenge for me is, I think as an entrepreneur, is putting boundaries on when I'll work, right? Because I could work 7 days a week. There's always something to do. And
Do you love it? Is it because you love it too?
I do love it. I do love it. And I feel it's a positive pressure. I guess I want to succeed. I want to build the business. I want to reach more people. And so, if I work on a Sunday, that's going to get me that much closer. But I also have to care for myself. I have to step away, which is very hard when your laptop can go anywhere in your house with you at all times.
I remember in 92, I was only working 2 days a week, and it was like from 8:30 in the morning till 3. Only 2 days a week, and I was doing really well. But I left that because my son was born. Actually, I left it way before my son was born. I left corporate in 90, and then I worked 2 days a week from 90 to 2001. And I only did 2 days a week because I was helping somebody out. And I said, my son's born. I got to be with him. I said, I'm giving you my notice. And they're like, oh, my God, you can't leave. I'm like, watch me. My family was more important to me. And I was there for my son, every day, changing diapers and loving every second of it. And he's a gift. And both my boys are gifts to me. And it's incredible when we are given the gift of a child. We need to be there for them. And I know some people can't because they truly have to work, but I didn't have to work. And that's because of all my actions that I did prior to that. We are done. What an incredible show we've had. Thank you both for being here. But before we go, we're going to give you a quick 30 seconds. Stacy, would you go first? And we'll put your website across the bottom and tell us how we can connect and how you can help someone.
Great. So people can find me at ifactorleadership.com. My business is iFactor Leadership, igniting introverted leadership. And I guide introverted professionals to identify and use their positive core, which is the best of who they are, including their introverted strengths, to excel at work and be recognized for the leaders that they truly are. So I offer coaching, and I also have an on-demand program called the Introverts Leadership Formula that folks can do, self-paced, which introverts love, that teaches strategies related to powerful communication, preventing burnout, and then how do you actually ask for a raise or promotion effectively as an introvert. So check me out. I would love to connect.
Yeah. Go to her website and let's get it done. Mark, you're up, my friend.
Yeah, I work with thought leaders and know they need videos for marketing, but they don't like writing, memorizing, and reciting scripts. They come into an online studio, look into a camera, answer some questions. We have a blast. The energy stays high. Less than an hour, they get 5 videos. I also have a podcast and radio show. As far as all my media, if you want to find me, it's at markjcarter.com. And if you want to see my interviews and podcasts, markjcartertv.com will redirect you right to my YouTube station. That's markjcartertv.com.
Love it. Thank you. And Dr. Andrea.
Yeah, you can reach me through the redcarpetconnection.com and or Andrea Adams-Miller at any social media. So what I do at the Red Carpet Connection is I help change people's lives into legacies so that they're living in their legacy while they're still alive and shifting from success. I can't talk today. From success to significance. So thank you for letting me share.
Love it.
Oh, by the way, talk about amazing follow-up. I told Dennis he should be on the show and reminded our listening audience, look what you can do by giving us a shout out. And then he said, yeah, I'd love to. I'll follow up with you. And he's already sent me his assistant to get booked.
That's the right way.
Take action.
Always take action. I call it SEO, see every opportunity, right?
That.
Instead of search engine optimization, which is a good thing, but as a person who creates their own brand, you have to see every opportunity and seize every opportunity. I'm Sifu Rafael. You can connect with me at Sifu at speakingprowess.com. Speaking Prowess is my website, and I help people communicate at a higher level. And my goal, my mission, is to enhance communication worldwide for everyone. And I know, Stacy, you're going to come on my other shows as well, because communication is your key. So let's do it.
And you have a new show.
Oh, yes. I know that the intro, I have to change the intro. It says I have 5. I actually have 6. I'm about to start my 7th show, and it's for authors only. And we're going to be highlighting authors. We're going to, oh my God, it's going to be dynamic. And I'm doing it with a super incredible Dr. Reverend Marion Pageant. And we are going to blow it up. And if you're an author, you know you need to come and be on that show.
Excellent.
Reach out, people. God bless everybody. Having a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. It's Friday. Have fun.